Hello and welcome to my 2025-2026 UEFA Champions League Matchday 1 review and thoughts. This will be a new series on the channel, and mainly these will be reviews primarily, but I'm also going to give you some thoughts of what I saw, and we do have 18 matches, which is a lot to look at, so I did try to keep these dumbed down, but some reviews are just longer than others. And I'll also leave what my predictions from the prediction video we did earlier this month. And I probably should have waited for the deadline of the transfer window, but it is what it is, and we'll see how those scores lined up. And then after we review all 18 matches, we'll take a look at what the table looks like, which it is early obviously, and we might as well compare it to what my predictions were and see how that matches up for match day 1. And then lastly, we'll take a look at UEFA's team of the week for match day 1. So overall, I am going to keep this one not as complex as possible, so sit back and enjoy. I'll leave chapters below so you can navigate to whatever matches you want to hear about. First off, congratulations to one of my very own for scoring the first goal of the league phase, and that would be Promised David. And this was a match that I kept eyes on, and we saw Ricardo Pepe, the American, be at fault for the first 2 goals with the foul inside the box leading to that PK, and then he ended up turning a ball over in the midfield. He did come out better in the second half, but USG played like they wanted to be there, and they embraced the opportunity. Kevin McAllister, who is the brother of Alexis McAllister, who plays at Liverpool, he would end up putting this match to bed, with PSV finding what you can call a somewhat consolation goal at the end. I am very impressed with the USG's performance, as I did mention in my preview that they would score a lot, and the American movement at PSV ended up costing themselves this one. This match had an incredible atmosphere in Bilbao in Spain. I feel I've never seen so many red and white stripes in a crowd like that, and I did not keep too much tabs on this match, but Arsenal was beginning to knock on the door as we got into the second half, and they did grow throughout the match. And Martinelli would end up coming on off the bench, and he would make an immediate impact, and he would break free, and he would sneak a goal past the goalkeeper with 18 minutes left. And it would not be the end there, as he would then get an assist to Trossard off a deflection to pull off this victory. And I was impressed with what I saw from both sides, but the better side used their quality, and they got the win here ultimately. So you can thank their bench. This was the match I kept up the most with during this time period on day 1. I did think Juventus started off right, and they looked good, but ultimately it would be 0-0 at the half before we just saw a complete explosion of goals. Adeyemi would get a great opportunity at goal for Dortmund, and it was perfect placement, and it's a goal. You could sense the slight change in momentum, and we'd see Jonathan David and Weston McKennie come off, which saw Vlahovic come on notably, and just like that, Juventus tied it up with a 1-2, and then Dortmund would immediately respond to retake the lead with Adeyemi getting an assist, and it was a great goal outside of the 18. Juventus then responded once more, and Vlahovic would get his first goal of the match to tie it up. And it was not much longer until Dortmund retook the lead with Giacudo scoring. And after that, there would be a Dortmund PK from a handball in the box, and it would be 4-2. And you really thought that this match was over like I did, but that answer was nope. Vlahovic ends up scoring once again off a... Vlahovic ended up scoring once again off a great cross, and then suddenly it's a tied match with an assist from Vlahovic, receiving help from the new addition from Zagrova, and then he finds Lloyd Kelly running up the middle, and he gets a header on goal, and it goes in. So, what a dramatic and exciting match, honestly. But we do continue to see David and Vlahovic battle for as much playing time as possible, and we'll see what they look like going into match day 2. I did not keep too many eyes on this match at the start, but as expected, Benfica ended up starting the strong foot, and they got a goal early on from a corner. And Sudakov would have a solid start, and even though it wasn't an assist, his pass would deflect through, and it would be 2-0. And then afterwards, I think just Benfica just ended up getting too comfortable, because when I did have eyes on this match, Qarabag did not look out of place at all. They get their first goal in the UEFA Champions League, and that would be off a set piece with some help, but a goal is a goal. And we go into the second half, and suddenly it's tied, and they were knocking on the door, just getting free, and they get a goal off the side netting, and Qarabag would appear to have scored to take the lead, but it was offsides. And later on, they would get their goal, taking advantage of flat-footed players, and they'd be able to win their first match. And when I meant Benfica would struggle in this tournament, I did not mean like this. So we'll see how they respond to this one in match day 2. I kept a little more eyes on this match, and unfortunately Villarreal, they had their goalkeeper lose the ball in his hands, and it just ended up into the net. Tottenham was still better throughout this match, but they were a tad reckless in the first half, and Villarreal would show some of that off as well towards the end of the first half. And I could say none of these teams were really doing too much in the wide areas when it was getting into their offensive half. So this match kind of just felt like a stalemate, honestly, and the only quote-unquote shot on goal was the own goal. So I don't have much to report on this match at all, but the result does go in favor of the UEFA Europa League winners from the previous campaign, and I expect both sides to be better in match day 2. This is also a matchup that I did not eye up, but I did know that Trent Alexander-Arnold did get his first start of the year, and it was brutal that he left with a hamstring injury. Real Madrid would start strong. They would hit the post and have a shot on, and then Timothy Weah, the American, would be the one ending up scoring first for Marseille in the return to the Champions League off a turnover taken away by Mason Greenwood. And just like that, it could have been 2-0, but it's 1-1 off a Real Madrid PK taken by Mbappe with a foul inside the 18. After the half, it felt like Real Madrid just had complete control, and when I watched a little more, we'd see them hit the crossbar at one point, and then VAR did intervene, and someone on Real Madrid got I can't say somebody. After the half, it felt like Real Madrid had complete control, and when I watched a little more, I saw them hit the crossbar, and then I saw VAR intervene, and we saw a straight red card, which meant Marseille would be up a man for the rest of the match. But it did not feel this way, as Real Madrid just completely dominated possession, and they felt pressure, and Real Madrid ends up getting another PK, and this one's off a very interesting handball, and Mbappe would score again. Greenwood would try to tie this one up, but it felt like they really had nothing left in the tank, and it was a very interesting to the end of this match for the circumstances. On to day 2, we have Olympiacos return to the Champions League out of Greece, with Pafos making their debuts with experienced but old players. Honestly, this match did not see a lot, and I wanted to watch this one for the atmosphere, honestly. And it was obvious Olympiacos were better, but Pafos had some experience with their players. It did not take long until Felipe received a second yellow card, and it ended up obviously being a red, and he was just completely reckless. He ends up putting Pafos down a man, and not much changed, honestly, in this match. And then in the second half, we saw Taremi come off the bench for Olympiacos, and I was wondering, would this be helpful? Maybe. He did almost get kicked out of the match with a red card, but VAR existed, and it is not 10v10. And then Olympiacos, they would keep pushing for goals, but not much went on target, and they did have a chance to win it at the end, but ultimately it was saved. This match ends up being a 0-0 draw. I think Pafos will feel good about this result. The match in Praha was a better one, with Bodo making their debuts. They did not look out of place. They had opportunities, but Slavia Praha would get their first goal with a pass all the way to the back post after their captain went down, and the crowd just completely erupted. And going right back into the second half, Bodo Glimt had a PK, but it was just a horrific take on their PK, and it was an easy save, and I just couldn't believe that it was just that easy. And then Slavia, they would end up fighting for a goal, and then Boji would have another goal, and it'd be a second in the same exact way that he did earlier to make it 2-0, and I thought for sure that PK miss would be costly. But the next thing we know, the Norwegian club ends up scoring the first goal up close, and they wanted another goal. Slavia would hit the post, and in the final minute, it became a tied match off a ball that came down with the volley, and it went bar down. And we saw this one end 2-2, so what an eventful turn of events. The German Giants were up against the Club World Cup champions, and we see this one go back and forth, and Bayern Munich would end up getting an own goal that ended up coming off a set piece. They then win a penalty with the English international of Harry Kane scoring after getting taken down in the box. However, Cole Palmer ended up responding with a perfect shot to keep Chelsea in it. Bayern Munich would continue to pressure Chelsea, and after the hour mark, Harry Kane would get his second goal of the match to give them insurance going into this one with a goal up close. And Bayern Munich would continue to outplay Chelsea, minus Cole Palmer looking like the only player that could give them some life. But this one would end 3-1. I thought Bayern Munich were themselves, and Chelsea's lack of chemistry, I talked about this may be a problem back in the preview, and I felt it showed in this match. The fact Marquinhos scored a goal in the 3rd minute all the way up the pitch for whatever reason pretty much is all you need to know how bad this match was for Atalanta. They just got completely ran over, and before the half it would be 2-0. Things became even worse before the half as they drew a PK on behalf of Musa, taking out Marquinhos, who was back up the pitch again. But Barcola's PK was not great at all, and they would go into the half up 2-0 instead of 3-0. And it seemed Atalanta had a chance to keep in this, but Barcola did and would get an assist to Mendes to make it 3-0. And it'd be a lot of players from the back line just finding their ways up, and in added time, Ramos would add another goal against a beat-up Atalanta side. Atalanta had nothing to offer in this match, and it was not entertaining at all in my opinion because of how one-sided it was, and it was just completely disappointing. This was another great crowd in Amsterdam, with Ajax hosting Inter Milan in the return to the Champions League. You could feel the atmosphere and passion, but Inter Milan ended up pushing through it, and it appeared that it had a PK, but it did get overturned. Ajax would get Jan Sommer his first task, but it would go the other way with Marcus Thuram scoring the first goal of the match off his head to close the half, and then entering the second half. He scored again, and we see that French-Turkey connection, and it was a very similar goal. Ajax would then get reckless trying to win balls and be able to try to get back into this one, but there just wasn't too much after that, and Inter Milan played fairly conservative, and they held their own to win. And it was great to see Ajax back in the Champions League, however. What a match that this turned out to be ultimately. Liverpool was on fire with Robertson and Salah scoring back-to-back goals, and it felt like Atletico Madrid's start in La Liga carried into this match. We'd end up seeing Atletico Madrid push for a goal and opportunities both ways with saves upon saves, and Liverpool appeared to have a PK, but there was just not enough to determine a handball from VAR, so they never got their chance at the spot. Liverpool kept pushing for that goal, but it goes the other way with Marcos Llorente getting a chance to sneak it past Alisson to end the half. And Atletico Madrid came out strong in the second half, but then Liverpool had another chance at a 3rd goal. And we just see the intensity pick up, and in the 81st minute, it's Llorente again scoring off a wonderful volley, and it did take a deflection, but it doesn't matter as it went in ultimately. And Liverpool would then push as they did not want to draw and pass the 90. It'd be Virgil van Dijk doing his usual thing and using his head to score the winner. Atletico Madrid saw another chance from Llorente, but it's straight to Alisson, and that'd be the end. And after this match, Atletico Madrid, they looked pretty salty, and we saw Diego Simone go at Liverpool supporters, and he ended up getting a straight red card. And I also saw a video of an assistant spitting on one of the supporters as well. That is unacceptable behavior, so we're going to see if there's going to be any punishments from UEFA afterwards. Yes. A match to start off day 3 that was not very interesting to me. It was not very long until Copenhagen would end up scoring first, which that didn't shock me, and they get a great finish from Jordan Larson to make it 1-0, and they were the better side throughout the entirety. of the first half, and then the Bayer Leverkusen performance did not surprise me whatsoever. So they'd make some changes at the half, and then it wasn't until past the hour mark where we saw Bayer Leverkusen beginning the fight in this match, and they eventually get a free kick, and it would be a spectacular top corner goal from Bodo. And then Copenhagen actually ends up responding again with their Mexican international, finding an assist out on the right with a cross to the middle to make it 2-1. And you thought that Copenhagen would end up winning this, but they ended up putting one into their own net after the 90, and it was a ball that came across and it goes in the net, and this ends up turning to a draw that Bayer Leverkusen, I could say, can be really thankful for. This is the match that I put most of my attention to, and Club Brugge had a field day against Monaco, who arrived the day of the match after being on a plane the previous day with no AC. That resulted in them not flying out to Belgium the day before. They didn't look the best, and I will give them some slack in this match, honestly. They had a chance to convert a PK early on, but the goalkeeper would end up making the save after being the one to concede the foul. And then we see him come out the match injured, so it resulted in a keeper change. And then Club Brugge just took this match to Monaco, and they did not look back, scoring past the half-hour mark, and then they scored another goal. And if you thought it was over, the captain Vanaken would end up making it 3-0 before the half. And the one thing I will say is, if you're Monaco, you can't expect your goalkeeper to make as many saves as he has been this match and pick up a result. And we see a slew of changes, and all the way at the 75th minute, we see it be 4-0 with a great goal, seeing one of Club Brugge's players take on 4 defenders and managing to put it home. And then towards the end, it'd be a consolation goal for Monaco, seeing Ansu Fati score his first goal for Monaco since transferring to the Lyon side. And I am excited to see what Club Brugge can do, and how is Monaco going to respond coming up. For this match, it really could have been one way for the away side after they went up 1-0, and it felt like this would be a great match, and then it ended 5-1 for the hosts. But I'm not going to be the one to talk about this match, so I'm going to let a Galatasaray supporter take it away.
Galatasaray's 5-1 brutal loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. Honestly, it was embarrassing and completely unacceptable for a Champions League opener. From the start, the midfield looked lost. There was no control or rhythm at all, just sideways passing and panic decisions. Gundogan and Torreira were supposed to be the engine, but they barely made an impact, and with that kind of midfield performance, the defense never stood a chance. And then came the collapse. 2 own goals, defensive gaps everywhere, no leadership at the back at all. It was like watching a team that had never played together before. Eintracht Frankfurt didn't even have to be perfect that match. We handed them the goals one by one. And let's be real, the problem started before kickoff and the Champions League ever starting. The transfer window was a mess, the delayed signing of Victor Osimhen hurt badly, and the squad still feels incomplete. Add that to the internal struggles within the club, and it's no surprise the performance looked this disjointed. And this isn't how you start a Champions League campaign at all, losing 5-1 against Eintracht. It's a massive wake-up call considering the teams we've drawn this year, because if things don't change fast, we're headed for another forgettable European run. Thank you.
To his point, I would agree that they do have a tough schedule coming up, so they do got some work to do. Oh my God, the Liga Portugal champions hosted a new debut in the Champions League, the last debut for this campaign. And it would just be all Sporting here, and a failed clearance would result in a PK, but the PK would barely be saved by their 18-year-old goalkeeper playing for Kairat, and the champions out of Kazakhstan, they were still alive, and they would have a strike very far out at goal, and Sporting would then hit the post from very far out, and eventually the hosts would end up going up 1-0 with a fantastic goal with quite the flick to set up a great strike from about 25 yards out. Notably, and we see the player named Sepev from Kazakhstan shine bright, and he's only 17 years old, and it's unfortunate that he didn't get a goal in this match, but Sporting would obviously keep showing how much quality that they had compared to Kairat, and I've never seen a player have as much bad luck as Luis Suarez, the Colombian, on Sporting. But by the 65th minute, we saw an explosion of goals with 3 goals in 3 minutes, with just too much space towards the top of the box and standing defenders for the second and third goal. But the fourth goal was really well earned from Kunda, and then the pressure would be sustained. But Qarabag, they would get their first goal in the competition off a cross and a great volley towards the end of the match. And yes, it was a rough match for Qarabag, but some young players really showed what they can be. So I would say that's honestly pretty cool for them. This match went fairly as expected, with Barcelona starting on the front foot. And the pressure was indeed on, but the first half, it was honestly just fairly quiet, with Barcelona being the better side. And we go into the second half, and it would be the Englishman himself, Marcus Rashford, scoring his first goal for Barcelona with a great header in his first match away from England as an opposing player. Newcastle United would make some match changes after conceding, but Rashford would end up scoring another goal on an absolutely powerful strike that had no chance to be saved. And it felt like Barcelona had this, but Anthony Gordon got a goal in the 90th minute with some help off the post, and this match got extremely spicy, and I kept all eyes on the last 10 minutes, since that's about how many minutes we played after the 90, but Barcelona just did their thing, honestly, and they did end up pulling the win off. So well done from Barcelona to stay cool and collected. Lastly, I thought this was going to be the match that was going to be best out of match day 1, so I ended up watching this mainly. The first 20 minutes, it felt head-to-head with keepers making a save each. And however, things just took a sudden twist when VAR intervened and gave Giovanni Di Lorenzo a straight red after taking down Erling Haaland on what felt like was going to be a good chance to score. And that would also end Kevin De Bruyne's return to Manchester City much earlier than expected. And then this match became one-sided, and we see Napoli's goalkeeper out of Serbia be the difference maker to keep it 0-0 at the half. And then eventually Erling Haaland would end up getting his goal using his head, and that would be his 50th goal in the UEFA Champions League. And later on, we saw Jeremy Doku score the second goal, and surely this one was over due to these circumstances with them being up a man. We saw a lot of substitutes afterwards, and Manchester City just ended up taking care of the match, not doing anything silly, and they get their win over the Serie A champions. But this is not an ideal start for Napoli, even though they did play a very good side. Alright, now we're going to take a look at the table. So just a reminder, if you finish 1st through 8th, you're automatically going to the round of 16. If you're 9th through 24th, you will be participating in the playoff to get to the round of 16. And if you lose, you go to the Europa League. And if you finish 25th to 36th, say your goodbyes. And in first right now, we have Eintracht Frankfurt, who I did expect to be pretty good. They did take advantage of Galatasaray just falling to pieces in the second half, honestly. And right behind them, PSG, no shock. And then Club Brugge, Sporting. USG is the big shock for me in the top 8 right now. Right now, I do think that they can finish top 24 if they just continue to do their thing. And then notably some other clubs. We have Qarabag in 10th, so they get that win over Benfica, so very good start for them. That's exactly what they were looking for. We have Bodo Glimt making their debut there, 18th, and then you have Copenhagen and Slavia Praha there, 19th and 20th, and then Olympiacos 21st, Pafos 22nd, a lot of clubs that the majority we didn't see last year. And then Benfica, minus that loss to Qarabag, they are 24th, as well as Atletico Madrid, who lost. They are in 23rd. So what it looks like on the outside, we have Marseille 25th, Newcastle United in 26th, Villarreal 27th, Chelsea 28th. We do have some good sides down here, but it's just match day 1, honestly. So match day 2, I'm sure we're going to see a good amount of flip-flopping. And we have Atalanta all the way in the back at 36, and then Qarabag, they are 33rd. Kind of more one of the clubs we would expect to be back here, so expect a lot of change in match day 2. If you're wondering how this compares with everything that I did from match day 1 for all of my predictions, my top 8, it's 50%, so I'm not going to cry too much about that. and then 9th through 24th. It's above 50% at 56.25%, and then 25th through 36. I also went 50% in that category. And if you're wondering how I did on complete accuracy on position, only 1 through 36, so that's 2.77%. I would like to thank PSG for making this one happen. And there was a lot of clubs that were like one off to my number, but it is what it is. I'm sure it will look better as we continue to go on throughout the tournament. And then how I did in like predicting the matches. So like for match accuracy with the score, I went 3 for 18, so that's 16.66%. So not horrible. But how I did when it came to deciding a win, draw, or loss, I went 12 for 18, so 66.66%. So essentially 2/3, I got those correct. So I would say those are pretty good when you have to also count that draws do exist. Lastly, we're going to look at the UEFA's Team of the Week for Matchday 1. I did question at least one of these players, but it is nice to spotlight players that we're not familiar with. Beginning at goalkeeper, we have the backup goalkeeper for the Argentina men's national team, Guillermo Rui, and he was the best goalkeeper, making 13 saves with 2 goals going in being PKs from Mbappe, and he was playing for Marseille, and they did lose, but he did pop off. At right back, we have Marcos Llorente, as we saw the Spain's men's national team player, scored 2 goals for Atletico Madrid in a defeat. At the right center back position, we have Derek Legazen from Amsterdam, Netherlands, playing for Pafos, and he notably had 19 clearances and 3 blocked shots. And then next to him, he has someone else from the Netherlands that we all know is Roger van Dijk. He ended up scoring the match winner for Liverpool, and he's out on the left, and we all know he captains the Netherlands. The left back ends up being from Slavia, and that ends up being Yusufa Mijoji, and he ended up scoring 2 goals on draw and break, so good for him. And then the right midfielder plays for Qarabag with Petro Vicao. The right midfielder plays for Qarabag with Petro Vicao from Brazil, having an 83% pass accuracy with 75% on long balls with 2 tackles in the midfield. The center midfielder is Portugal national team player Francisco Trenco, who had 2 goals, including the match winner for Sporting against Kairat. The left midfielder is Club Brugge captain Hans Venneken, who had a fantastic goal as well as an assist to open the match to help lead his club to victory. Marcus Rashford is the forward out on the right, who scored 2 goals for Barcelona in his return to England and a win over Newcastle United. Harry Kane is the center forward, who scored the match-winning goal for Bayern Munich as well as the go-ahead goal against Chelsea. And Marcus Thuram is the forward on the left side, who also had 2 goals for Inter Milan in both halves, which were the only 2 goals scored in Amsterdam as they were hosted by Ajax. That will do it for Matchday 1. Let me know what you thought about the video and how we can make these better. I am planning to bring in more Tristan's Pack members to get more involved and give their reviews so I can ensure we're giving you the best information possible. We will be back for Matchday 2 in the month of October before the FIFA Men's International window. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again. God bless, and take care all.